Alright, guys, so I know I've done a lot of my version of Halloween Horror Night videos, but I like doing them. You know, and first off, it's my channel, and B, you know, there's always so many, you know, variations you can do with Halloween Horror Nights that it's just a lot of fun to do. So, yeah, it's just like no harm, no foul, right? Like, there's no real harm in, you know, wanting to do a Halloween Horror Nights video and doing your own version of it. So for this time around, I'm going to be doing like a story. I'm going to be building into the lore of because every Halloween Horror Nights year is centered around lore and building up on that year. We also have, for this time around, I'm going to talk about scare zones. There's usually 5, so I'm going to do 5 scare zones. And I'm also going to be, of course, talking about I'm going to be talking about like shows I would like. I think I got 2 or 3 in me. And, of course, we're going to do 10 houses. Because that's always, like, they always try to get to at least 8 to 10 houses. So, the houses, I will say, will be 5 IP houses and 5 original houses. So, we'll do that in a bit. But let's talk about what this Halloween Horror Nights would be centered around. This Halloween Horror Nights will center around a new era. Like it's a new dawn of Halloween Horror Nights, and to do this, we're going to do this with a new mascot, a new villain to add to the pantheon of icons. So we're going to have a new icon added into this universe, and this new icon I call the Dream Lord. The Dream Lord actually does have connection to an icon already. This guy's name was once Ezekiel Kane. He is the grandfather of Albert Kane, the caretaker. Ezekiel Kane worked at a sanitarium, but his real love was exploring the world in the world of dreams. Like, he wanted to explore further and believe that dreams were another gateway to, like, it's like a roadmap to a new universe out there. And he basically built a machine and tested it on the inmates of the asylum. And it's a very Lovecraftian kind of story because, like, every time he would use the machine, he would look into the minds of madness and what dreams come from madness. In fact, it was he actually worked at, he was the head of Shady Brook Sanitarium. Shady Brook Sanitarium is also what would be the sanitarium that Jack the Clown was kept in for a while. So he used the inmates at the time of Shady Brook Sanitarium he held them there, but the more he used the machine, the more, like, the dream world was leaking out. Eventually, one day, he decided to use the machine on himself, and he vanished, killing everyone in the sanitarium vanished. It wasn't so much killed as they vanished, and all that was left was a writing on the wall saying, "What dreams may come." So, now Ezekiel Kane and all of the beings from all of those dreams and night and dreamscapes have arrived. They've now finally returned out of the dreamscape and are now at Halloween Horror Nights to scare all of you. So our icon, now Ezekiel has become the Dream Lord, and has opened the door, has basically ripped the doorway between the dreamscape and the world of dreams and the world of the awake, and has unleashed all these terrors on you. So that's the theme of it. I love building lore, and I think it's high time. I really do think it is high time to have another new icon. It was really cool to have Oddfellow, bring in a new icon that is lore connected. So to have Dr. Oddfellow, I thought was really cool. The other thing I really liked was having the Pumpkin Lord, even though he wasn't really in Halloween Horror Nights 31. They used the Pumpkin Lord from one of the mazes as a icon, so I thought that was pretty cool. But I always love new icons. You know, it's always cool to come back to old icons, but it never hurts to have a new one in your pantheon. And having it connected to the old past was something I looked at Oddfellow. It's like, yeah, let's have one that's connected to not everything needs to be centered around Jack, right? Like, not everything needs to be centered around Jack. But anyway, Let's get started with let's do the scare zones first. Like, let's do the scare zones first, because no one really likes to think of those full force, or give them a lot of love first and foremost. We'll get to the houses in a minute. So, 5 scare zones. First scare zone is dreamscapes and nightmares. This is basically like the first one you go through. This would be the first scare zone you go through, and would focus on a little. I would have like a little show for Ezekiel Kane, having it that you now see him as the Dream Lord. He's he's basically like welcoming you into this place, and have all like these dream-like monsters come out and scare you. That would be kind of the idea of it. Second second scare zone, Mr. Meat's Food Truck-O-Rama. For those who are not in the know, there is a very famous haunted house, original haunted house from Scary Ohio lore in HHN called Mr. Meats, which was a butcher who basically made meat out of human meat. Ugh, tongue-tied. So this would be like an updated version of that, where Mr. Meats has now got a food truck rally going on, and he's missing an ingredient. You. So you'd basically be scared of people like popping out of food trucks, or running at you looking for food, ready to eat you and shit like that. Maybe even tie in with food, like have an actual food truck stop in Halloween Horror Nights that has special foods for the night, because we always love those expensive ass foods for the night, right? Anyway, so following that, our third one, 3. I know how to count. Our third house would be centered around. Third scare zone would be this one I call Dark Corners. This is more or less a scare zone that is centered around a child, and we'd also tie into the main story of nightmares and stuff. And this is more or less, Dark Corners is a child, like an area that is a child's nursery house from the Victorian era, and it's all like monsters under the bed and in the closet. Like you would have they'd be strewn all over the place, and have monsters come out from under beds and scare and pop out of closets at you, and also have like twisted toys also attack you. So that's Dark Corners. Our fourth one would actually be this one would actually be kind of fun, because this one would actually be a scare. My idea for this scare zone is that it's a IP scare zone. And what IP is that? That IP is actually going to be, well, it's IP in the sense that it's music based. And that is a Ghost BC scare zone. We've had scare zones for Rob Zombie, and I think they did one for Alice Cooper too before he got a house. But yeah, so a ghost. I know I've talked about how I'd love to have a Ghost BC haunted house, and I still do. But I'd say a scare zone would be really cool too. That way you could have more openness to showcase all the bizarre artwork that Ghost is known for, and also having nameless ghouls walk around and scare you would be a lot of fun. So there you go, a Ghost BC scare zone. And finally, our last one is called the Junkyard. And the Junkyard would actually again tie into Scary Ohio, where this scare zone would be modeled after a junkyard in Cary, Ohio, which is known as Scary Ohio. And here you'd be attacked by big demonic junkyard dog puppets, angry village, scrappers and shit like that. Even monsters made of pure scrap metal coming at you. So there you go. Those are all our scare zones for this year, for this version of Halloween Horror Nights. Now let's get into shows. Yes, I'm still building up the haunted houses. So we're gonna do 3 shows, because God knows Halloween Horror Nights needs. They desperately need more shows to eat up to eat up space and time. For they need people eaters, because God knows Halloween Horror Nights gets clogged relentlessly. So we're gonna do 3 shows here. First show, Villains Academy. My idea of if I could make a Villains Academy theme, I would have it be centered around evolution, or rather call it evolution. I'm a walk-in joke. So have it centered around more animalistic designs, have some contortionist shit like that. That would be that's how I would do it. That's my version for Villains Academy. Next we have for our next one we have this is what everyone wants, and I'm such a basic bitch, but it would be a new version of Beetlejuice Graveyard Review. New version, since it's at late night, it's Halloween Horror Nights, make it a little more, you can do it a little more, you can do more X-rated jokes with Beetlejuice now, and have it have some blood and guts in there too. That'd be really neat. Finally, our third and final show for this version is not so much a show, but it would actually be, and I don't know where you could put this, but I think it would be really cool, the return of Truckosaurus. If you guys remember, for the first 3-4 years of Halloween Horror Nights, they had a big animatronic monster dinosaur creature, robot dinosaur, come and spew fire and eat cars. So fucking cool. Have the return of that, use one of the other unused theaters you're using, go right fucking ahead. Anyway, so those are our 3 shows, and now we'll get into what we all came here to see. Hardcore nudity! No, I mean, haunted houses. So like I said, 10 houses for this event. For this event, we're going to do 5 IP, 5 original. As always, we always try to use the original house. The original houses are loved, but this one, you always know that the IP houses are the ones that bring people in. So let's talk about the IP houses first. So ever since 2018, we've had houses centered around the Universal monsters, and this would be no different. This one is called I call Universal Monsters Siege. Universal Monsters Siege is essentially Dracula has assembled the Universal monsters and is now launching an attack on the on the nations of the world, and bringing about a new era of the Age of Man is over. The Age of Monsters has begun. So you would have this would be fun and gory scenes, the Universal monsters fighting their way through U.S. troops and fighting their way into the White House, and Dracula eating the president, draining the president, and sitting getting in the chair yeah, I now run this place. Have Frankenstein just flip over tanks, just absolute madness. This would just be a fun house to see. The other so there you go, Universal Monsters Siege. Anyway, so next up for our second IP house is the Twilight Zone. This one would be very much like Creepshow, where it was a anthology house where it had different episodes. So here would be the best of the show, the Talking Doll, Something on the Wing, or rather Terror at 50,000 Feet. You have other and these would all be classic episodes, and you would hear Roger Serling's voice throughout, introducing you to each section of each of the each parts of the Twilight Zone house. I think it would be really cool. The Twilight Zone today is still a very much loved series, and I would go classic. Although I would like to have nods to Jordan Peele's remake of it. But yeah, so that's our second IP house, the Twilight Zone. Our third house is going to be another fun one. And this one's going to be fun in the sense that it's an IP that is meant to be there so many times but has not gotten there. And that IP house is Scream. Yep, we're finally doing a Scream house here. This would be very much a reference to the original film. We're not going to do Scream 5 and 6, even though I like those movies. This is going, this house is going to be centered on the first movie, and maybe even some bits and pieces of the second film. Hell, you could even have it like it's like you could have this house be like it's referencing the kill. Like it can be like, yeah, it's an actual haunted house, but the kill, like people have killed the scare actors and are now pretending to be Ghostface to kill you. There you go. So there you go, Scream house. Next up, we are going to be doing a Bendy and the Ink Machine house. Yep, we got we've had Silent Hill, Resident Evil, recently The Last of Us. Now it's time for something cartoony yet twisted, and I do believe, like, I've heard a lot of heavy rumors that yes, we will be getting a Five Nights at Freddy's house. So I was like, yeah, let's do a Bendy and the Ink Machine house. It would be a great mix of cartoon and evil, and I would love to see how they would design, the Joey Drew Studios in live action. Finally, our final house for the event is going to be another fun one. Another one that hasn't made its appearance yet. And that is a classic John Carpenter film, The Fog. The Fog is a great film, and it was actually meant to be in Halloween Horror Nights before, but unfortunately the rights fell through, so they made it Dead Man's Wharf, which actually is still a good original house. But The Fog, this would not be the remake, this would be the original 1970s film. It would be a lot of fun. So there you go. Those are your IP houses for the event. Now we come to original houses here. Sorry, fucking chair. Now we come to the original houses, and you got to start off strong with your mascot house. Your icon house. So this would be called Nightmares Made Real: The Origin of the Dream Lord. So this house would tell the story of how the Dream Lord how Ezekiel Kane became the Dream Lord. You'd go through Yale, like a classic version of Shady Brook Hospital. You would go through all these houses and see, like, it starts as like as an insane asylum, but as you go further, it becomes more like a Lovecraftian nightmare throughout the second half of the house. Like, the dreams are now coming through. So there's our first house. Second house. This one is going to center on Mothman. This would be called Mothman: Eyes of Terror. So this would be a horrific retelling of the classic 1960s encounters with Mothman, focusing you go to a version of Point Pleasance, and it would be like a mashup of all the classic stories of of how they saw Mothman. And it would eventually culminate into seeing the Silver Bridge coming down with and I'd have a lot of people in Mothman costumes on suspended wires, just jumping and looking like they're flying at you. So that's how I would do it. So there you go, Mothman: The Eyes of Terror. Third house. Our third house is a sequel to a classic storyline that was been used before, and that is Nightingales: Civil War. The Nightingales have appeared twice before, and basically what they are in Halloween Horror Nights lore is that they're creatures that feed on the dead and dying in times of crisis. So the first one was set in World War I. Then you had another one which was centered around the the Age of Rome and the Roman Colosseum. Here, as you could probably guess, this will be centered during the Civil War, specifically during the Battle of Gettysburg, where the Nightingales have descended on the dead and dying of both the Union and the Confederacy and feeding on them. There you go. I think that's a pretty good idea. Fourth original house. Our fourth original house is another lore-centric house, and this one is going to be called the what did I call it? Welcome Back to Carrie. This is another like great reference to Cary, Ohio, aka Scary Ohio, and this would be like a new take and go through new segments of Cary, Ohio, and introduce horrific new monsters, ranging from ghosts to zombies to things like that. We're going back to Scary Ohio. You gotta have it. Finally, our final house. Our final house, for a final original house, is a new one centered around monsters. But this time around, these ones are monsters not from Central America, but like from Native American lore. So you've got monsters like the Wendigo, you've got monsters like the Bayok, like the Pukwudgie, like various Native American lore. Because I feel like that's like outside of the Wendigo, there's a lot of scary monsters. Like you could have a Skinwalker, things like that. So it would be a house centered around various Native American lore monsters. So there you go, guys. That is another version of my new Halloween Horror Nights. You guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of it? Comment below, let me know. What would your Halloween Horror Nights be? Would you use an old icon? Would you make a new icon? What houses would you want to have? Both original and IP, scare zones, all that good stuff. Just comment below, let me know. Other than that, hope you all enjoyed this. I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.